So I officially caught up to Deltarune as of about a week ago, and
I understand now.
maybe I'm a little bit tardy to the party here, but I haven't been able to get this game out of my head since catching up. I am madly in love with it to an arguably unhealthy level. So maybe if I use this video as a dedicated space for me to gush about it, maybe the wait for Chapter 5's 2026 release won't continue to chip away at my soul. Both Deltarune and Undertale were games I've always known about through the grapevine, and honestly, how could I not know? Someone like me who's been in, general online spaces for as long as I have, was bound to see people talking about these games one way or another. Whether it was from people I didn't know at all, kind of knew, or knew very well, one thing remained consistent: everyone loved these games to death. Even the guys who didn't even play games on a daily basis were obsessed. I'd see video game OST rankings online and half or more people's songs would be Deltarune or Undertale. Some personal close friends of mine were part of this statistic. I feel like Sans' general existence had gotten big enough to the point where at least one aspect about him could be identified by people who didn't even know what Undertale or Deltarune was. Sure, I might have gotten spoiled on some stuff, mainly OST related or fan animations before going into it, but they were all pretty minor and didn't affect my overall experience. Despite not being all that into the RPG genre growing up, never really going outside of games like Paper Mario, Mario & Luigi, or Pokemon, that wasn't what was holding me back from playing. And it wasn't the fan base either. I never really understood the mindset of not wanting to watch a show or play a game because of parts of said fan base can be cringe. Every fan base on the planet has cringe parts to it. I think the only reason I can give for not getting into these games sooner was simply laziness. But the release of Chapter 3 and 4 is when the FOMO truly kicked in. Plus, I feel like catching up now is actually a pretty good time to do it, as the story has officially reached its halfway point. There's only so much enjoyment I can get from this world only through secondhand experiences from my friends or watching fan edits on YouTube. These people experienced the source material firsthand, and I knew I wouldn't be able to truly feel the same as those guys if I didn't do the same. So now that I've caught up, I can confidently say this is one of the best games I've played in my entire life. Or at the very least, the best RPG I've ever played.
This is the best game ever!
Playing chapters 1 through 4 didn't take very long either, maybe less than a week of playing and a 13-hour total playtime because I was just that hooked. To give you a quick summary of the plot before I get into the more meat of the game, Deltarune follows the adventures of a human child named Chris and their bully turned best friend Susie. After they stumble into a place called a dark world located in their school storage closet, where they'd meet the Prince of Darkness Ralsei, who'd befriend the two of them and warn them about a prophecy that could destroy both the light world where they come from and dark worlds if they don't do something about it. Leading to the three of them traversing across different dark worlds to seal the dark fountains that created them, and even forming more friendships along the way. I think the first thing that really enveloped me before the story sections even kicked off was the music. Toby Fox's composition skills have been highly praised since his work on Undertale, to the point where the music from these games is probably the most recognizable part about them, at least from a casual perspective. A lot of these tracks, original forms, or remixes of them are constantly used in different video essays, compilations, or storytime videos, even on channels that aren't gaming focused. I'll keep it $1.50, there were a few times on my other channel where I used Deltarune tracks in the background for YouTube shorts. Does that make me from the past a fraud? Perhaps. I was hearing the early themes of inside Chris's house, the town, and the school that I hadn't heard properly before, yet knew it sounded familiar. Then it clicked, like, oh, that video essay I watched a while ago was using the Deltarune school theme the entire time, and I didn't even know it was from Deltarune until playing. Of course, most of the iconic themes, at least for me, are the ones tied to the bosses. Themes like Jevil's, Spamton Neo's are ones that I heard prior to playing, but getting to fight against them myself just made me enjoy the themes even more. And my three favorite themes off the top of my head are probably Guardian, The World Revolving, and It's TV Time. Something Deltarune does, which I absolutely adore, is use what's been dubbed by fans as the freedom motif throughout different parts of the game. It's a unique motif used in some of the game's secret boss fights in particular, those being Jevil, Spamton Neo, and Gerson Boom. Three characters whose personalities and character arcs revolve around the concept of freedom. Jevil and Spamtons are pretty similar, as they are two characters who greatly valued the concept of freedom but weren't quite free themselves just yet. Jevil, the Agent of Chaos, very fitting for the character who's based on the Joker card, being trapped inside King's Castle by his old friend Sham, or Spamton receiving his Neo form only to still be tied down by strings, willing to kill Chris for their souls so he can truly be free. While Gerson, the Hammer of Justice freedom motif, is a bit different than the other two's because he's already completely free. all of this plays a big part in one of the game's main themes, which is the conflict of how much your own choices truly matter. Is everything in one's life completely set in stone, or can the choices you make have enough of an impact to change the initial course one's life was set on with supposedly no allowance for change in the end result? This theme is further explored with the game's main prophecy, Chris's whole character dilemma, and the ability to go through the game in more than one route. The prophecy is stated several times by Ralsei that it cannot be changed. He tried to have some semblance of hope that if certain choices were made, like the Fun Gang being kind enough to those they met, maybe that would have enough of an impact. Yet it's been hard for him to stay optimistic, mainly due to part of the prophecy involving a tragic event needing to happen in order for the world to be saved from the calamity known as the Roaring. With characters like Gerson existing to go directly against this whole notion, believing fate can be changed through the power of hope, and giving characters like Susie especially a lot of courage and development thanks to him going out of his way to smash parts of the prophecy on purpose and take Susie under his wing as her mentor. As for Chris, their whole thing is some existential fourth wall breaking shit, but it's super interesting to say the least. At the beginning of the game, some unknown voice tells us, the people playing the game, that we're given control of this heart-shaped soul. But instead of choosing our own character, the unknown voice invalidates everything we choose, saying choices don't matter, and we'll be controlling this kid named Chris. Okay, yeah, sure. The thing is, Chris knows they're being controlled, going out of their way to take the soul out of their body at the end of every chapter where they get up to their own devious activities, ones that seem to conflict with the main goal of saving the world from the Roaring. Chris is like the biggest double agent there is, because while the majority of Chris's choices are done by the people playing the video game, there are times where Chris acts on their own to help push the narrative forward that will save the world. Like when they defend Susie from King's Spade attack, or the times in Chapter 4 where they and Susie match each other's freaks. It's clear that Chris at least values the friendship between them, Susie, and Ralsei, especially with Susie. So I'm very curious to see how things will go down when Chris is properly revealed to be a double agent working against saving the world. Specifically working alongside Noelle's mom, Carol Holiday, and the Roaring Knight, the mysterious entity responsible for opening all the Dark Worlds to make the Roaring Calamity happen. Because Chapter 4's ending seemed to imply Chris's moral code they were following at the beginning of Chapter 1 was wavering a bit, evident by the voice on the phone reminding them not to forget the task at hand because they quote-unquote promised. As of now, the Knight's true identity is still a mystery, but the characters with the most evidence stacked against them, I think, are Carol and Des. Personally, I feel like it's gotta be one of them, but if it's not, then hopefully the more unexpected twist can still work well within the narrative. There's tons of different theory videos out there about the Knight's identity that bring up some very interesting points, so I don't want to focus on that too much myself in this video. I'd recommend checking out channels like WizTale or Gloop. They go a lot more in-depth with Knight theory crafting. Even though the likelihood of the Fun Gang reconciling after Chris's double agent reveal seems inevitable for the story to properly move forward, I know it's still going to tug on my heartstrings. Susie's reaction is going to kill me. I know it will. Because she'll be the one who's the most in the dark again. Something she vividly crashed out on Ralsei for in Chapter 4 because he wasn't being vocal enough about the prophecy. So for her to learn Chris, who basically became her best friend throughout the course of the game, was in cahoots with the evil entity responsible for every hardship they've been through, it will completely destroy her. Having to think about the cold possibility that Chris was never actually her friend to begin with, since we were controlling almost every move of theirs. Ralsei might not be super innocent in this situation either, because he's cursed with this knowledge of the prophecy.
You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
A lot of people have speculated Ralsei has known from the beginning that Chris is being controlled by us. So if that does end up being true, then Ralsei would have betrayed Susie's trust as well. I'm not ready for these conversations, man, and I feel like Chapter 5 is when it's all gonna go down. Deltarune's cast of characters is absolutely superb. I don't think there's a single character from any of the 4 chapters that I genuinely dislike. Obviously, there's some terrible people in this game. The Roaring Knight's a real jerk, as we know. But even they have their charms. A top-tier aura farmer right there. Same with Birdley, he's got his moments. He's super Mandark coded, and I always liked it when he played a major role in Dexter's Lab episodes. In terms of writing and character development, I don't think it's a hot take to say Susie is objectively the best. Introduced as the hot-headed, scary monster girl of the town, we slowly learn she's a lot more sensitive than she puts on. Ever since she moved to the hometown, she'd been on the more sensitive side, but felt like she needed to be tough to survive. Prior to Chris and Ralsei, Chris's mom, Toriel, was the only person in town Susie let her guard down against. I love the small seeds painted for this little backstory in Chapter 1, where Susie makes that small comment to Chris about, Toriel being a good person, for us to learn at the end of Chapter 3 why Susie values Toriel so much. Toriel found a young Susie crying one day, so to cheer her up, she took her out for a meal and was there for her. In a way, she was Susie's first friend. It's a lovely setup and payoff that doesn't directly affect the prophecy plot, but gives us more insight into these characters. And then there's Ralsei, the Darkner Prince, who continues to struggle with having no self-worth, believing he and other Darkners only exist to help Lightners. carrying the burden of being one of the only people in this game's world to know the entire prophecy. This weight reaches its breaking point about halfway through chapter 4 when Susie calls him out about not telling them enough information, saying he was too scared to do so, followed by Susie assuring him he shouldn't have to bear this burden alone, with Ralsei promising to be less secretive from here on out. Even the whole thing with his room in Castletown, he felt like he didn't deserve any decorations in his room despite giving Chris and Susie super decorated rooms. He's selfless to an unhealthy degree, but damn do I love him. He's my favorite character for sure. Even characters that started out as antagonists were given second chances by the end of their roadblock objective. Tenna is easily the best instance of this so far. While he was instructed by the knight to slow the fun gang down, we can see that wasn't the main reason he put them through all those minigames. It's because he missed having someone look at him. Due to Tenna being the Dark World version of the Dreamer household's television, which hadn't been used in a long while, Tenna felt like he'd been given a second chance at life with the formation of this Dark World. It was the most fun he'd had in years, but the fun gang kept pushing back because they knew they had a mission to do. So when Tenna gave them one final gauntlet through his boss fight, the defeat he faced made him super depressed that things were going to go back to the way they were before, just collecting dust in a living room with nobody paying attention to him. But Susie was able to resonate with Tenna's struggle through her own, suggesting when she and Chris are back in the light world, they take Tenna into town to see if any citizens want to take him. Which in hindsight, I kind of regret doing because I didn't realize I couldn't see this Castletown cutscene if he's at the new house. This game does such a good job at making both the overall plot and the individual struggles of each character engaging at all times. All this gushing, and I haven't even gotten to the actual gameplay yet. The overworld stuff is very charming. I feel like the Dark Worlds become more invigorating to explore with each new chapter. Many of the puzzles varying in difficulty, going from simple yet effective to legitimate head scratchers. But maybe every puzzle was easy and I'm just an idiot, I don't know. Seeing the different detailed descriptions for even the most insignificant objects like certain doors or some random crap on the floor really shows how much soul was put into this game. However, the gameplay is at its peak whenever battles are taking place. Every single enemy in the game not only has completely unique attacking patterns to make each new battle you're progressing through the chapters feel refreshing, plus I love the way you have to defeat them varies in silly ways. Since I was playing completely pacifist and only used attacks when I absolutely had to, like against the Knight or the Titan, I was picking axe every time. Even though the selection of an act is the same every time, the acts themselves are always different so I never get bored. Some of these acts will give unique animations too, usually in boss fights, mini-boss fights, or some enemies. One of my favorites was the mini-boss against Sweet, Cap, and KK, where you need to make the three of them dance in unison to win. Not only do those three get unique dance moves, but so does the rest of the fun gang. Ralsei doing the Charlie Brown Christmas dance is one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. The game usually encourages you to play pacifist, but just like Undertale, you can take the weird route / Snowgrave route starting in chapter 2, which is triggered by having Noelle use her ice powers against all enemies throughout her time as a party member, completely shifting certain story elements down a more sinister path. Not too keen on this route though, because that means I lose out on the option to recruit certain enemies into the main Castletown. God, I love Animal Crossing. I mean Deltarune. My only small gripe with the battle system is there's no way to run away, so whenever I was backtracking and an enemy that was fully recruited would magnetize onto me in the overworld, I kind of wish the option was there to bail since there was no value in fighting it anymore. The amazing battle system is most apparent in the boss fights for sure. Chapter 1, while great, played it a bit on the safer side when it came to, how you needed to dodge boss attacks. Chapter 2 onward really kicked things into high gear. Toby and the team fully embraced their love for other game series and used this as inspiration for some boss fights, like Queen's tutorial fight and the final fight using elements of Punch-Out's gameplay. Spammed in Neo's fight changed the soul from red to yellow where his attacks acted very Galaga / Space Invaders-esque. Chapter 3 as a whole was one big love letter to WarioWare, with some classic Zelda elements as the cherry on top. And Chapter 4's main reference, as far as I'm concerned, was the Jackenstein fight, acting like its own version of the Pac-Man arcade games, all the way down to collecting yellow pellets inside the mazes and Jack chasing you around once you collect the key. I especially loved the way the secret bosses were handled. Since you had to take a specific set of steps to unlock each one before the final boss of each chapter, it felt fitting in a sense for these bosses to be so much harder than any other bosses in their respective chapters. I want you guys to know I was on Jevil and the Roaring Knight for 3 hours each and didn't get upset once. As someone who's definitely lost his patience at getting rolled in video games before, this was the biggest green flag on the planet for me, because even though I was getting bodied, nothing about their attacks felt cheap. It unironically came down to skill issues. 90% of the time I was losing the fight or taking damage in general. The Knight was easily the hardest fight for me because I never got the Shadow Mantle item in Chapter 3 side quest. I found out through a friend later on that you needed to S-rank the first 2 boards, and if you went too far like I did, a chapter restart is required. This attack in particular can suck my balls, by the way. The satisfaction from beating them was immeasurable, and the rewards were very worth it. Not only do you get an item called a Shadow Crystal, which once 5 are obtained, Sham will give you something special, meaning Chapter 5 should reveal what that special something is, in theory, as well as a strong piece of armor or weapon that'll increase your defenses or attack way more than pretty much any other equipment you'd find normally. By the end of Chapter 4, I still had Jevil's tail equipped on Ralsei while Chris had the Dealmaker. They're just that good. Outside the secret bosses, the gradual difficulty increase was well implemented into the chapters as well. Like everything besides Jevil in Chapter 1 was kind of a cakewalk, but Jackenstein was on the trickier side unless you were using items to increase your TP outside of collecting the keys. Which I was not. To tell you the truth, I forgot I even had them in my inventory half the time. Probably why the Titan fight felt tougher than it should have. Live and learn, I guess. Even with the game already reaching the halfway point, it feels like there's so much good content still awaiting us. Chapter 4's prophecy descriptions seem to heavily imply Chapter 5's events will be centered around Asgore, aka the Flower Man trapped in Asylum. A dark world forming inside Asgore's flower shop seems practically guaranteed in my eyes. And maybe the secret boss will be some kind of flower-related enemy as a callback to Undertale. I cannot wait. I know the content I've done on this channel up until now has been on AAA Nintendo IPs, but if you haven't yet, please give this game a chance. It's on Switch 1 and Switch 2 for only 25 bucks. And for those who have played it already, let me know who your favorite character is in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd be very open to do more videos like this in the future if the support is there. But sometimes, stepping out of my comfort zone, while nerve-wracking, can be quite fun. So for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.